Welcome on in, Thad Brown here with you, Caleb Carr, Rachel Liber too. It is BKL Nightly, the Monday after the first loss of the season. Da, da, da. It is non-victory Monday. Defeat Monday. No, that's a bit terrible thing. We'll leave that alone. Anyway, the Bills lost the game to the Patriots. You guys all watched. You know what happened. A lot of conversation about what to do next. We heard from all three heads of state, as it were, in the Bills coaching staff, Sean McDermott, Joe Brady, Bobby Babich. We'll talk a lot about how they propose to fix everything that went wrong. But first, let's start with the injury update from today. The two big ones from what Sean McDermott had to say involved Matt Milano and Dorian Strong. Strong is going to see a specialist. McDermott did not say if there was any decision about what he would be doing. The neck injury is obviously very concerning, and it certainly seems like a long-term issue with Strong is on the table. In fact, Sean McDermott said today he would not rule anything out. The other notable injury is Matt Milano, who is now week to week with a re-aggravation of the pectoral injury. Remember, when Sean McDermott says week to week, that usually means the player is going to miss some time. Good news for the Bills is the bye week is next week, so it's not out of the realm if Milano does not go on injured reserve. He might only miss one more game with this, but missing time again with a pectoral injury that he had already suffered with a guy who just cannot shake the injury bug is very much concerning. And, Bobby Babich talked today about how bad he feels because Matt Milano is a guy who has certainly done things the right way, but at this age and what he's gone through, it's really hard to imagine that Milano is going to be the player we saw a few years ago who played at an all-pro level very consistently. All right, let's go to the other news from today, guys, and that was with Keon Coleman, who it was revealed was benched for the first series of the game Sunday night against the Patriots. Sean McDermott got a bunch of questions about it. It took a little while for us to get any sort of information and thought from the coach on the Keon Coleman situation. But here's the entire exchange today with media about Keon Coleman.
Yeah, discipline. Head coach discipline.
Is it disappointing that there is an issue that created the need for that?
Yes. Yeah.
What have your conversations been like with Keon and making sure this doesn't continue going forward?
Well, we expect more, and he has shown growth this year. He has. We're looking for more consistency.
Consistency in any specific area?
Growth, maturation, that leads to consistency more than anything. And like anything else, you have winning habits. It leads to winning on the field. And so that's really what we're trying to create, and that's what we're here to do is help young men in this case grow and mature and develop and become professionals, and that's part of the process.
All right, guys, Keon Coleman, another hit to the development. Caleb, give me your reaction about not only the news that he was benched for a series. When it comes to benchings, it wasn't a half, it wasn't a quarter, it was a series, so maybe not that serious. But this is a guy that was lauded for how well he had grown up in the offseason, apparently taking a step back before this game.
Yeah, it's definitely confusing, especially like you said with the just a series thing. It wasn't like a set number of plays. It wasn't anything like that. It was just the series. And then for him to have the game that he had afterwards, I believe he was targeted once in completion, and then on the drive after that, fumbled, and that set up the field goal, and the Patriots only won by a field goal. So that was a big play. That was a big possession. And then after that, I think he only finished with 20 some yards. So not really a day for him. It does concern me that although everyone said, like you said in the offseason, that he's grown up a little bit, this really concerns me about his maturity level, just because I do think he's got so much talent and he could be so good. But if he's, whatever the problem is, if he's not willing to grow up and be more mature and work on that and kind of learn to grow, we could see him just not ever become what I do think his ceiling is.
Yeah, I think the main takeaway from what Sean McDermott said was exactly like you said. Maturity was kind of the big word. I think that kind of alludes to maybe the bigger issue going on with Keon Coleman here. And I mean, exactly like you said, Caleb, we've seen what Keon Coleman can do. He has the talent, but maybe that maturity of just being a second year in the league is what's stopping him from getting to that next level of producing on the field. So, I mean, it's definitely interesting. The only one drive or one series he's out of the game. And then obviously the game doesn't really go in his favor. So I think for me too, the big thing that I've seen with Keon Coleman is you're the guy at Florida State, and then you come to a team, you're a rookie, you don't produce as much as people think you were. Then you have the expectations of, I'm going to have a breakout year. And so you kind of have to be in a mental space to get over that hump. And I don't know if Keon Coleman is there yet.
The thing that bothers me is that this season started with what we thought was a Keon breakout game, right? The 8 catches, 100 whatever yards, touchdown, and he looked like a guy that could make the plays you're asking him to make. And even in this game against New England, that 3rd down catch, that is vintage Keon. If you get 2 of those a game and maybe 1 for a touchdown, I think the Bills would sign up for that for the rest of the season. But because it's coming with these interspersed bouts of lack of discipline or just a lack of maturity, it is bothersome. Now, look, Keon Coleman's what, 22? How many of us when we were 22 are, responsible for all the things we...
I am 22.
I didn't want to bring it up. I was trying to be nice, but still... Oh man, I had a line. I really had a line I wanted to say. I'm not gonna. It's just not nice.
No, go ahead.
No.
You have to rip it now.
I do not.
Yes, you do.
I really do not.
All
right. I'm just gonna
tensions are high.
Talk about your level of competence. No. Caleb is the anti-Keon in the office.
Thank you.
In fact, if anybody's the Keon in the office right now, it's probably me, right? I mean, let's be fair here. In terms of lack of maturity, how old am I? And I'm still the guy who's like. Acting like I'm 12 and everything. But anyway, look, the point I was trying to make there before I got totally sidetracked by inadvertently ripping my guy Caleb is that he can grow out of this, very easily. I mean, it's not like this is who he's going to be forever, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. Definitely not. Like you said, he's only 22. Rachel said it's only his 2nd year in the league. I think we are so accustomed to seeing these rookies, especially wide receivers, come out and just be stars. Like you look at guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, they were stars right away. Brian Thomas Jr., he's having kind of an off year this year, but last year he was a star. Like you look at these guys come right out of college and they just go. That's not what happens with everybody. And I think we need to realize that it might take him 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. Now you don't want it to take him that long. You want him to just pick it up and go, but that's just not the reality.
All right, let's move on to the rest of the problems with this team. And look, they're 4-1. There's not that many problems. Like this is not a red alert, the season's over kind of loss. It's just surprising. It's kind of unnerving. So the Bills lose by 3 to the Patriots. There were issues on both sides of the ball. I would contend there's more concern with the offense. But like we said, all 3 coordinators talked to the media today, and all 3 kind of had something to say about where the Bills go from here after what was clearly a disappointing result on Sunday night.
There was nothing that was the standard last night, right? It's, when you turn the ball over 3 times, you have 7 penalties. It's hard to beat a team. It's hard to beat any team in the NFL. It's really hard to beat a team in the NFL and while also having to overcome beating yourselves. And, that first half especially was about as bad as it gets.
Certainly there's a standard that we hold ourselves to, and the guys know. They know when it's not up to standard, and they know what the expectation is. Our guys have a lot of pride in what they do. And if it's not up to par, they'll be the first ones to tell you that things need to get fixed.
We've done a good job, I would say, overall. You're never perfect of responding when things haven't gone well result-wise. Myself as a coach and us as coaches, and the players do a really good job with this week to week too, even following wins of being honest with themselves and being truthful in our conversations and objective on things we need to improve on.
So surprising stat that I just unearthed, and I revealed it to you guys a little while ago and revealed to everybody here. Sean McDermott has coached 8 years in the NFL with the Buffalo Bills. In not one of them have the Bills gone the entire season avoiding a 2-game losing streak. So every single year under Sean McDermott, the Bills have lost back-to-back games at least once. This road trip to Atlanta, it doesn't feel like a game the Bills should lose, but Rachel, it is certainly a losable game for the Bills. But without specifically looking at this game, or you can if you want, but where do you want to see or hope to see or expect to see this team get better from what we saw on the field Sunday night?
I mean, we could set our offense as kind of the thing that we agreed is more of a concern. I mean, and we also talked too last week when we looked at these next stretch of games, we thought that this upcoming game in Atlanta was going to be the game that might take down the Bills before obviously they lost this one. And so it does have brings some concern that obviously this is a game that the Bills should win, but based on yesterday's performance at home under, a game, I think looking at this game yesterday, the main reason I thought the Bills have this in the bag is because it is a home game. If they were on the road against the Patriots, it might have been a little bit different. I still would have chosen the Bills to take the win. But I mean, it's just cleaning up the offense. Like the coordinator said, it was just a sloppy first half of football. I mean, 4 quarters of football, honestly. But it's not really that much of a concern for me. I think they lost by 3 points. I mean, as bad as the Bills played, they still lost by 3 points. So there's things to clean up, but I don't think it's, this is the end of the season and they're going to lose the next however many games. So it's not that much of a concern.
Yeah, just to go off what you said with the cleaning it up, every single drive that the Bills held, other than obviously, if you want to consider the final play of the game a drive, but every single drive up until that point results in either a score, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal, a turnover, 2 fumbles and an interception, or a penalty in the last 3 downs that before they punted, a penalty within those last 3 downs.
So a penalty-induced punt, essentially.
Exactly,
yeah.
Yes. And that just, to me, I mean, like there are games where you can have a couple turnovers and, a couple penalties that put you back, but then your offense maybe stalls out on a couple other drives. I don't think the offense ever really stalled out necessarily. It's just, it was 2nd and 10, and now all of a sudden it's 2nd and 15, or it's 1st and 10, and now it's 1st and 20, and they're not able to overcome that hump that was induced by the penalty. So just to reiterate what you said, just sloppy football that puts them back. And like I believe it was Joe Brady that said, it's hard to beat another team when you're trying to not beat yourself.
The thing about the offense, and you got a good point with how the drives ended, that there were circumstances. It wasn't just like run for 0, incomplete, out. There had to be a penalty or something else. Mm-hmm. That being said, this was another game where the Bills didn't run it very well. We talked about that on BKL Nightly last night, where this is the second time this year James Cook was under 50 yards, the first one being the Baltimore game, which was probably the second worst offensive performance of the year before Josh Allen just went ham and stole the game late. I don't know if we can just expect the Bills to walk back into, we're going to run James Cook for 100 yards every single time. I think it depends on the opponent to a degree. The other thing, too, is forget the penalties. The thing that also stopped the Bills was the 2 fumbles. Those have increased. Last year, the Bills had 9 fumbles as a team for the season. Right now, they're on pace for 20. So that's the thing that, to me, has to get better. Because of all the things the Bills did right last year, taking care of the ball might have been the number one hallelujah moment, coming off a quarterback that threw 18 picks the year before. Mm-hmm. If we go back to a Bills team that's just going to give the ball away, not Josh Allen, but everybody fumbling, then, the things that you're doing on offense to make it easy, I think also go away too. So in terms of whether it will or will not happen, I feel pretty good that the Bills will get it figured out because they're the Bills and they have Josh Allen. But fumbles to me and the lack of taking care of the ball from what we've seen early in the year is the concern that I lead with right now going forward here. All right, let's go to the BKL Nightly Roundtable. We got more questions to hit on. The number one here is the bright spot from last night's game. That would be Mr. Dalton Kincaid, who had his first 100-yard game in the NFL. So, Caleb, I'll start with you. Kincaid's been good. He's actually second best among qualifying tight ends in catch percentage and success percentage. So basically, when the ball's thrown in Kincaid's way, good things happen. But he's only played about half the snaps this year, gets about 20 routes a game. The question's right on the screen. Should we be throwing the ball, if you're the Bills, to Dalton Kincaid more often?
I'm going to start with a little bit of a joke answer. No. Because if they throw it to Kincaid more, that's less targets to Jackson Hawes. And here's a little thing for you. Where
are you going with that one?
Jackson Hawes didn't catch a pass yesterday.
Oh, I forgot about that.
This is the first time this season that Jackson Hawes has not caught a pass.
No wonder they lost.
In a game, and they lost. So, listen,
why didn't you lead with it? See, this is why you're the 22-year-old that we can't trust right now, because you held out
crucial
information. All right, go ahead. You had your reveal. Continue with your point.
Coincidence, maybe not. But anyways, I do think that he should be targeted more. I do think, obviously, I think he tied for targets with Shakir, maybe, or at least tied for receptions. I believe it was
tied for receptions. Yes, I know about targets. I'll double check it right now. Go ahead.
But I think, depending on the game plan and depending on who you're playing, it's definitely possible that you can get him the ball more. But that's going to be made so much easier if the rest of the receiving core can do something, can become a threat. Because if Keon Coleman and Shakir and Palmer, if they're not threats, then teams are very quickly going to realize, okay, Dalton Kincaid's a threat, shut him down, we're done. The same way that they have with James Cook. James Cook's the threat, shut him down, it's done. And that's what happened yesterday. So I think that they definitely should look to get him the ball more, but in order to do that, the rest of the receiving core needs to become a threat.
I think it's an excellent point. Now, look, I think shutting down James Cook and a particular receiver are different things, but I get what you're thinking there. But, Rachel, I think it makes sense that if you're going to ask Dalton Kincaid, who's not Travis Kelce, who's not George Kittle in terms of I can just go out there and out muscle or out athleticism anybody I face to get open. If that guy's your number one, you're probably not going to go anywhere. So that being said, though, is there an argument for more targets for Dalton Kincaid at some point, at some level?
I think there is an argument, but I kind of like where Dalton Kincaid is kind of in the role right now. I think that's kind of where he's going to excel. If you put him in this, number one pass catcher role, I don't feel like he's going to be as productive as he is right now and was yesterday. I mean, he had 108 yards, I think, receiving yesterday, no touchdowns, but I mean, he led the receiving, group. So for me, I think there is a case to be made as to why he deserves to be targeted more. I mean, he was the guy yesterday, but I kind of like where he is right now, and I kind of like the role that the Bills have put him in, because we've said before, we know what Dalton Kincaid is and we know what Dalton Kincaid isn't. And I think right now where he is kind of what he's excelling and bringing the most to this offense of what he could be.
More is not necessarily better. I think you and we talked about it before, that there is an argument for Dalton Kincaid's reduced snaps is something that is helping him, become a better receiver, because additional snaps as a tight end is probably going to require more blocking, and he ain't great at that if it's not against a defensive back. So I'm with you guys in general. I think, look, maybe you want to try it, because like you said, Caleb, it ain't like anybody else who catches passes not named Khalil Shakir has been that effective this year. But I don't have optimism about Kincaid as a primary ball receiver as something being super effective for the Bills. By the way, targets were Shakir 9, Keon 7, and Kincaid 6. But that goes to the point about you throw Dalton Kincaid 6 targets, you get 6 catches for 100 yards. You throw Keon Coleman 7 targets, and you get 23 yards and a touchdown. So Kincaid has been far, far more efficient. Question number 2 on the roundtable here. The corners we've talked about quite a bit. Usually, with in terms of how effective they've been. Mostly it's been about corner 2, though. Yesterday, Christian Benford, I think, became a part of the do we have a problem at corner discussion. So, Rachel, do the Bills have a problem at corner if you even include corner number 1?
I think they do. I think their problems at corner might be the most glaring problem, at least in the secondary as a whole, just on the defense. And Christian Benford has not been, this best DB in the league that the Bills have continuously said that he's been this entire offseason. I mean, he's doing fine. I think he had 4 tackles yesterday. I mean, you see him do what he needs to do, but then sometimes he's getting beat. And so, I mean, I'm not concerned about Christian Benford. I think he is one of the best in the league, but I don't know. It just brings me concern of, we saw how much Stephon Diggs ran all over the defense yesterday. And it's multiple guys. It's Trey White, it's Cole Bishop, it's, whoever you want to include in that. But I mean, regarding Benford specifically, I'm not concerned, I guess, specifically for him, even though he hasn't been as productive as we think he should be.
Yeah, along the same lines, I think it's only one bad game from Benford, if you want to even call it a bad game. It's only one really bad game. But with that, the Bills have only faced 2 actually really good quarterback wide receiver duos this year. Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers in week 1. Zay Flowers went nuts. He had over 100. I think he had 140, something like that. And then you have Drake May, who I would consider a very good quarterback at this point, and Stephon Diggs, who proved that he still is a very good wide receiver. Other than that, they haven't really gone. I mean, I guess if you want to say a Tyreek Hill and a Tua, but hot take, Tua's not that good. Anyways.
Slip that in there nicely.
Yeah. Anyways.
That's the 22-year-old.
Both times they were gashed. And I'm not that concerned about Christian Benford. I'm very concerned about Trey White. I'm starting to go on the upwards trends of concern for Christian Benford. But the more and more I watch Trey White, the more and more I'm like, we got to get Maxwell Harrison out here. We got to at least see what he can do. And I know he's kind of a question mark, and we don't know when he's going to come back. And I know all that. But the more and more I watch Trey White, the more and more I'm like, we need something else.
and probably soon. You know, now look, Trey White has had moments where it looks like he's fine, and I think there's a perspective to this. Okay, do we think the Bills need better from the corners in general? Yes. Is it reasonable to expect that, considering what they've been? And the reason I'm going there is this defense has has not been great recently. So the level they've played at, I think you can get out of Christian Benford and almost Trey White right now. So is there concern? I don't know if I want to go that far, because this defensive group and this corner group has kind of been in a spot where they're okay-ish for a while. I think with Christian Benford, when you pay the guy, you expect a little more out of him than what you got in this game. But it's just one game. And the other thing, too, with that, and I think we might have talked about this last night as well, as a number one corner, I think you got to grow into that role, too. You don't just walk into a season and bibbity boppity boo, you're a number one corner. You got to kind of earn that. And you got to play through it, and you're going to get tested, and you're going to lose sometimes, because this is a league where the wide receivers are supposed to win anyway. So the Benford side of this, to me, I know that there were questions today asked about, to both Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott about him along with Trey White. But to me, the concern is more on the other side. And the other thing, too, is the Bills have safeties. Taylor Repp's been here for a while, but he's fine. Cole Bishop's still learning, too. There's a lot of development going on in the secondary for me to look at Christian Benford and say, well, geez, you didn't shut down Stephon Diggs. There's a problem here. I still want to give a little grace period for that to happen. But we're going to see Drake London next week. If Drake London walks out of that game 8 for a buck, whatever, like Stephon Diggs did, then the next week the conversation, I think, gets a little bit different. All right, real quick, let's go around the room. We do this every Monday after a Bills game. Concern up, confidence up. We'll start with confidence up. Caleb, you can go first. Who are you a little more excited about? Actually, probably should have started with concern up after a loss, but we'll do that for the next loss. Who are you a little more confident about? Easy. There's going to be another one. It's the NFL, probably. But who are you more confident about coming out of this game?
Right now, I'm going to go with Greg Rousseau. I thought he had a very good game. We talked about him a little bit this week. We've talked about him a little bit about how, we expect some more out of him, but it hasn't really been there. But a sack, 2 tackles for loss, 3 QB hits. I thought he looked very good. There were a couple plays that didn't end up in this box score that he still, looked very, very good on. He was rushing the passer at a pretty good rate. I thought he was a part of the reason why the run game wasn't very strong for the Patriots. So I'm going to go with Greg Rousseau as my confidence up for today.
I like that one. Rachel?
We already talked about him, but Dalton Kincaid, I'll keep it short since we've already gone over it, but just he's kind of going into this role of just being a target that you can count on, and I think he really showed that yesterday, so feeling better about his presence on the field.
Nothing wrong with that. It was the layup, but it's still correct. I'm going to go Deion Walker. I really liked his game in a number of ways. I thought he was active, on the field in terms of run stop stuff. The Bills also, Bobby Babich talked about how encouraged he was with the way Deion Walker played in this game too. So I think the arrow continues to be pointed up for a guy that really has impressed me in terms of the different things that he can do on the field. All right, let's go to concern up. We'll go back to Caleb. Who are you more concerned about after the Bills loss to the Patriots?
I'm going to stay in the same position group as I did with my confident up. Joey Bosa, he's just been extremely quiet. Ever since that Jets game, there's been nothing. And I know I keep trying to give him credit by saying Ed Oliver's not there. Ed Oliver. When the Bills pay you the amount of money that they're paying you, you shouldn't need Ed Oliver there to make an impact. And he's literally making no impact. There's zero anything. There's not even a QB pressure. There's barely anything there. And for that reason, I'm starting to get a little concerned.
I'm going to go with the run game as a whole, but specifically the depth in the running back room, just with the fact of if James Cook is being shut down the way James Cook was shut down yesterday, and I think Davis and Johnson only had 2 carries each, so it wasn't really anything to really see what they could do. But it's just who is behind James Cook and what does this offense do when that run game isn't working? So just kind of concern as a whole is when the run game is shut down like it very much was yesterday, what is the next solution?
I was thinking about that, and I didn't think about it from the point of view of going to the other backs, because James Cook's been so good. What more can you get out of someone else? But it's not an irrelevant point. Ty Johnson and Ray Davis are a little bit better, a little bit different style players. Maybe more carries from them can be an answer in that spot. And I think the production we've gotten out of both those guys is a little bit concerning. I'm also going Joey Bosa. I was totally right with you. The other part of it for me was snaps were down to 33%, which is good. We want to protect the guy. But late in that game, there were multiple times I'm on the sideline thinking the Bills need a closer. Where's 97? Like, that should be the guy, and he did not show up to make plays. Now, the other part of Joey Bosa concern up is that the concern for him was so low through 4 games that it's easy to go increased. I'm going hardcore definition of the upward. But regardless, I think Joey Bosa in this game was not as good as he needed to be. All right, speaking of not as good as we need them to be, or the Bills need them to be, we talked about the receivers not being great in general relative to Dalton Kincaid. That was another item that was addressed today by Sean McDermott when the media wanted to talk about wide receiver separation, or more importantly, the lack thereof in this game against New England.
We want to get more. I mean, it's easier said than done, though. They're playing good defense. They're doing some things. They did some things that they hadn't shown maybe on tape as well, and affected some of the scheme part as well. So. Again, it's never just one piece. It's all 11 making one play go, and we didn't do enough of that from the start, in particular in the first half.
So wide receivers separation, or the lack thereof, again, has been a topic all year. Caleb, I don't think it's going to magically appear, but maybe scheming things up can be an option. Where do the Bills go to try and augment what they're doing with the wide receiver group?
I think scheming is the main option, because I do think that we already talked about Keon Coleman and how I think that he has talent. I think Joshua Palmer has the chance to, be able to create some more separation. We've talked about him on man on man. And Khalil Shakir too. Like he has the ability. They all have the ability to. They're just not. And then the other point I was going to make is the fact that they had such a problem against the Patriots, and Stephon Diggs, Bill's old teammate, went out there and he just cooked. Just kind of rubs salt in the wound. And
the other thing, too, pointing out the Patriots matchup, Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis are going to negate separation for a lot of receivers this year. And the fact that they did to the Bills, I don't think is that concerning. The thing that does bother me, though, Rachel, is Josh Palmer was, he had a decent game in this one. The prior 2 was almost absent. The Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore rotation, I don't know what's going on there. Elijah Moore was a healthy scratch. Curtis Samuel had a couple nice plays. But the depth part of this receiver rotation, the non-Keon Coleman, Shakir parts, leave a lot to be desired so far.
I think the everybody eats mentality at this point is doing more harm than good, because we are...
That's a statement, by the way.
We're not seeing, they talked about there's no wide receiver 1 on this team. Okay, you want to argue that's Shakir, whoever. I mean, at this point, Shakir was, I guess, yesterday out of the receivers. But I feel like we are not seeing any one receiver step up and really be productive out of each game. I mean, yesterday was a tight end. Shakir was fine. But I think this everybody eats mentality is just kind of like bogging down this fact of somebody needs to step up and do something. It can't just be spread across this wealth, because it's not working in the offense, it's not working the way it should be. So I don't know. I mean, with Josh Palmer, we need to see more from him, and it's just we haven't, because they're spreading the wealth, and it's just not, I don't think, turning out the way it should be.
I think the conundrum, what everybody eats, is that the guy you need to step up is Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And most of the time that works. When you don't have someone on the outside to pick up the slack or to be that guy, it does become a problem. All right, thanks to Caleb Carr, Rachel Labert. We are done for today. I'm back with Carl Jones tomorrow, the Let's Talk Ball edition of BKL Nightly. Thanks for watching. We will see you again tomorrow.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.